Hello, BookTube. Well, it had been a long time since I went to the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston. Been a whole day. They're a great used bookstore in downtown Boston, and in my own defense, I can come up with a number of things in my own defense. In my own defense, number one, the Brattle changes its stock all the time. And by that, I don't mean twice a year. I mean all the time. And also, if I'm doing my job right, if I'm reading the way we all are, energetically, attentively, always curiously, then I will be changing my stock, so to speak, all the time. So that every day there will be a slightly different emphasis on what might interest me. Also, the Brattle sale lot outdoors is thousands of books, all different shapes and sizes, all different conditions. You could be paying all the attention in the world. Your eyes are still going to start to group things over, to start to gloss things that you're looking at in a way that they won't do identically the next time you look at it. That's one thing I can say in my defense, is that I was bound to find things that I missed. Thing number two that I can say in my defense is that you can literally shop at the Brattle every day. I did that for years and years. I worked at a retail bookstore right around the corner from the shop, and that was my lunch break. I went to the Brattle on my lunch break, and almost always found things. I don't think I can count on the fingers of one hand the number of times in 50 years that I've left the Brattle on a visit without something. And there are other reasons as well. I felt a little deprived, to tell you the truth. Not only did I not get the Boston Public Library book sale, because I put on my big boy togs and I walked all the way over to the subway station, all of 30 feet. That's no small thing. And there was a big sign saying, no subway today. Sorry, don't feel like it. So I didn't get the Boston Public Library book sale. I know what the Boston Public Library book sale tends to offer. I could pretty much guess that I wasn't missing any life-altering finds. I know that it would have annoyed me because it would have been full of dealers with their phone apps. I would still have liked to have gone, though, and I felt deprived of that. And then, obviously, famously, I was deprived yesterday of an Eclipse. Which, now, today, I know that nobody would believe me. There's now film footage all over the place, and people all along the path of this thing doing we were out with the telescopes, we were out with our special glasses, we were using timed f-stops so that we could film the whole thing. And I know that today I would sound like a crusty old crank if I said, well, it skipped Boston. It skipped my part of Boston. There was no eclipse in my part of Boston. Because people would say, oh, sure, Gramps. That's not how eclipses work. They don't skip a certain place. I know that that's what people would be saying today if I had not taken the precaution of filming live during what was supposed to be a loss of 92% sunlight. That live stream is on my channel. Go and watch it. I obviously wasn't fiddling with the lights. My hands are in full view the whole time. And in that live stream, the light level does not dip at all. I'm in bright sunlight the whole time. So the eclipse did not happen here. I don't know what the astronomical reason for that is, but it didn't happen here. So I missed the book sale at the library. I missed an eclipse. So I went back to the Brattle. I went back to the Brattle even though it had been 24 hours since I was last there. And I don't want to get all morbid on you, but I realized when I was there, I realized more pointedly when I go quickly, when I go 2 times in rapid succession, I realize how much I get from visiting the Brattle that doesn't have anything to do with the books that I haul out of the sale lot. There's really a lot that I get from this. This is, it's a social thing, of course, as you're going to see. I'm fairly chummy with the shop. I like everybody there, and they put up with me. I would love to talk when I go in. But it's not just that. It's also people who aren't here anymore. Or people who are here and have moved on. They are older and they live somewhere else and they never think about the Brattle Bookshop. I go there for ghosts. And I get a huge amount of comfort out of that all the time, even when I don't particularly need comforting. I didn't need comforting this morning. But it happens anyway. And I know that's going to sound weird to a lot of you, especially all of you who are young. If you're young, you probably don't have any ghosts yet. And probably the thought of it disturbs you because you think of ghosts as negative, as frightening. And they can be. They can't be frightening, but they can be negative. Definitely. They can. Sometimes they are attached to feelings of loss. And those feelings of loss lie dormant, but they can be kicked up like dust. And then all of a sudden you're breathing them in. And there's nothing you can do about that. You just sort of wait for those emotions to calm down and pass again. But I know you won't believe me. If you're young and you don't have any ghosts, then you won't believe me. You don't necessarily have to be young. I know a couple of people who only have one ghost, or maybe none, even though they've reached 40 years old. I have lots of them. Lots and lots of them. And they're almost all at the Brattle. When I go, they're almost all there. I can almost see them. At those outside bargain carts with me, just chatting, ignoring the books, or finding gems, people who are long gone, or who aren't themselves anymore, or who have grown up. They aren't boys anymore. They're responsible late middle-aged men, and they don't go book hunting anymore. But they did for a while with me. And I get to be there again with all of them. It's just, I know I'm not doing a good job describing it, but it's a great feeling. A great, comforting feeling. And that's not even counting the books themselves. Which, even if the lot weren't full of ghosts, it would still be full of those books. And all of the times that I have had with so many of these things, so many millions of books have passed through my hands. So many of them have. Not just at the Brattle sale lot, but everywhere. It's just everywhere. Including a whole lifetime spent in the new retail book world. It's an amazing experience, is what I'm trying to say. I would go there anyway. But while I was there, I got a gigantic pile of books. I thought I would show them to you. We have all sorts of ground to cover here. The first one is an accident. I got it because I know this is probably true for a lot of you. When there's a books in series, or something like numbered, or something like that, when I see them used, when I see them secondhand, I grab them, irrespective of whether or not I accurately remember which one of them I have. Now, yesterday at the Brattle, I mentioned that I had a feeling that Prince Valiant collected volumes were going to start showing up in the collection that was just recently bought. And I took the precaution of taking a picture of the two that I had so that I didn't get a duplicate. That's good, because the two that I had were there. In addition to the one that I didn't have, I could easily have brought home two duplicates. But I don't always think to take pictures of everything, and I don't always precisely remember, especially if the thing in question is a new acquisition. And when I was out during our epic book hunting when David Murphy was here, we went all over the place, got tons. I got 100 books or more in that 4 days span. And a couple of the things that I got during that visit were Flashing Swords anthology volumes. These were an anthology series put together by Lynn Carter that were really good. I mean, anthology series back in the day were a dime a dozen, but the Flashing Sword series had a lot of heart to it. They were really, really good. And I had two, and I found two when I was out book hunting with David. But when I was at the Brattle today, I did not remember which ones I have. Of course I don't. I'm sure that you must be that same way. Oh, here are all these books. I don't remember which numbers I need. I went through that forever with the Aubrey and Maturin novels of Patrick O'Brien. Finally, and now I have the whole set, so I don't have to worry about it. But I saw this thing and thought, okay, is this one of the ones you have? Why can't you remember? The reason I can't remember is because those books from a couple of weeks ago are still new in my mind. They're not settled. I haven't handled them. I haven't written about them. I haven't annotated them or anything. So that was the reason why I didn't remember. So I got this. I got Flashing Swords #1 in this lovely hardcover. And it turns out it's a double. It turns out this is one of the ones that I got, probably at the Book Barn or someplace else. So we're starting off this egregious second Brattle haul in 2 days with a giveaway for this channel. Because I have 2 copies of this thing now. I'd be happy to put this in a padded envelope and send it off to one of you, following the usual 3 guidelines for any giveaway on this channel. I was very late getting out the Mirror and the Light for the last giveaway that I did, but it finally did happen. And I can be much better about that. I can be much more conscientious about that for this, and maybe, whatever other giveaways we might do in the future. I kind of like the feeling of it. It feels a little bit redundant because I'm sending out books to a lot of few people anyway, but something about it. I mean, giveaways are a feature on a BookTube channel. It feels right to do it. So you have to follow the 3 strictures for the Steve Donoghue giveaway. Number 1, you have to live in the lower 48 of the United States. No Hawaii, no Alaska, and no overseas. And not across borders either, not Mexico or Canada either, because it won't reach you. It has to be in a lower 48 state of the United States. Number 2 is that you have to know where you live. You have to know your mailing address. And you have to be willing to tell it to me accurately the first time. So, not that you give me 1/3 of your address and I mail off the book and it never shows up and I'm out the money of mailing it, and then I question you about it and you say, oh yeah, here are the other 2/3, try again. Now, I can't know that you're going to give me the wrong address or an incomplete address the first time I do it. So you could still waste my time and money, but only once. And then I will remember, and it won't happen again. So stricture number 2 is you should know where you live. You should know your own address, which might seem silly, but I have dealt with. I'm in the course of this channel, I must have mailed out hundreds of books by now, and you'd be amazed at the sheer number of them where the person leaves off something extremely important. Not out of spite or anything, but just because I guess they never give their address to other people. I don't know. And the third stricture, the third parameter for this giveaway is that you have to want the book. So if you're trying to be, Joe Cool casual, yeah, I might take it. Yeah, I might be interested in that. I might pick it up. Then don't bother. Don't bother to even mention the idea. Don't bother to sing out in any way. So if you want this book, and maybe, you live in a used book desert, so you're never going to find it, and it's 300 miles uphill both ways and whatnot, and you live in the lower 48 and can accurately tell me where you live like a 5-year-old, then let me know, because this is just a double. There's no reason for me to have 2. Then I found a book. I wasn't going to get this, and I wasn't going to get any of its companions either. For a long, long time ago, there was it Dell? There was a series of mass market paperbacks. I feel like I should have one within reach, but I don't. For the longest time, for 2 weeks now, I've had the best of Jack Williamson within reach, but it's not within reach now. But for a long time, there was a whole series of best of mass market paperbacks. They're old now. They're 70, 60 years old now. Best of fill in the science fiction author. And some of them were really well-known authors, but a lot of them weren't. And a lot of the great founding groundbreakers of science fiction and fantasy aren't known anymore anyway as it is, because the genre does not honor its ancestors. And I love that series. I've had a lot of them over time. My favorite one, of course, is The Best of Cordwainer Smith. But I'd be happy to gobble them up as I find them. But I've been telling myself in my mind that the main thing I love about that series is one element I love about that series is the nostalgia element of the mass market paperbacks. And that is not true. I know that's not true. That's a drawback. Print and paper pasteboard books are awkward enough as it is. Mass market paperbacks, they might be awful handy, but if you're talking about something that's 70 years old, it's not going to hold up to you reading it. You're going to have to be very delicate with it. And a lot of those best of books were also issued in one time or another as hardcovers as well. And there are a few of those that are turning up at the Brattle. I don't know if they're the end trickle of the bits and pieces of a collection that nobody wanted, or if they're the beginning and there'll be a lot more. And I told myself when I saw them that, nostalgic element, they might be, those little mass market paperbacks might be fragile anyway, but I want them. I don't want the hardcovers. I want those little mass market paperbacks. Probably I would still get them anyway, but the hardcovers make more sense, so I broke down and got one today. I got the Best of C.L. Moore. With the cover illustration shows me and Deb. What are the odds? This is edited by Lester Del Rey, and it's a science fiction fantasy author who is not remembered. Just a terrible, terrible shame. Just not remembered. These have nothing on the back. They say Nelson Doubleday, but I don't know if these are science fiction book club editions or not. What does this have in it? Chamblot, Black Thirst, The Bright Illusion, Black God's Kiss, Tristan Time, Greater Than Gods, Fruit of Knowledge, No Woman Born, oh man, Damon, and Vintage Season, with an afterwards by C.L. Moore, who was great. So this isn't anything like what the paperback, the best of C.L. Moore looked like, but I'll take it, definitely. Then this thing, I don't know if this is going to be a trend. I don't know if the person who's unloading these things unloaded all of these as well, but it's a hardcover. It's, I think, a book club edition, so I grabbed it. It's the novelization. It's Vonda McIntyre's novelization of Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, known to the millions of people who considered this the best Star Trek movie of them all and went to see it in the theater as the one with the whales. This is the one with the whales. I love the movie poster cover here. Just love it. And this edition has nothing. It's not blank on the back, but it doesn't have any editorial stuff. It just has our crew, which is awesome. And I doubt even now, 40 years after the movie, I doubt that I need to explain what this is about. If there's a Star Trek, if you're not a Star Trek fan and you've seen one Star Trek movie, it's probably this one. And it is utterly winning. Just from start to finish, it is utterly winning. This is by Vonda McIntyre, who always brings something extra when she is handed, a finished shooting script and said and told we need this in 3 weeks. She manages always to bring something extra anyway. I like this novelization. I got it as a hardcover. I don't quite know why. Well, it was $1, but I have it as an ebook. But I don't think the ebook has that. And we're coming up on Book Trek, so I grabbed it. That's a nice thing. The nice thing about the Brattle sale lot is that everything out there is so cheap. That really, as I've said many times before, you're going to be hampered by your carrying capacity long before you are hampered by your buying capacity, which is really nice. It doesn't happen in too many bookstores anymore. Then I found another science fiction hardcover. I just recently found the mass market paperback of this thing. I did not know that a hardcover existed, so or if I did, it's been eons since I had it. I'm going to reread it, but now I have a hardcover that'll be a lot more durable than the mass market paperback. This is Alfred Bester, the author of The Star Is My Destination and his great masterpiece, The Demolished Man. This is one of two of his later novels, Gollum Ray Still Haveth Power. And the other one is The Deceivers, which I don't have in hardcover, don't have in mass market paper, don't have it at all. This is, I don't know if this is a science fiction book club edition. There we have the author on the back with what would have been the cause of his death if he hadn't been clumsy. If he hadn't tripped and fallen, then he would have died. He was dying of lung cancer anyway, but that killed him first. But this is a weird novel. Very, very. This is an experimental author anyway. This is very experimental. I don't know. I don't think readers knew what to make of it, and I loved it. There are large parts of it that I love. I think it comes off the rails at the end. Not my usual complaint where a book has a bad ending, but that I think its ending transcends primary numbers, and I just didn't understand it at all. Maybe it makes sense, but I didn't understand it at all. Then I found a hardcover book that I've had before. I had this as a trade paperback once upon a time. Read it until it fell apart. I love it. It's uneven. It's a collection of period prose, but I really, really enjoy it. It's John Bailey, who a lot of you will know as the husband of Iris Murdoch, but he was also a critic and a writer in his own right. Also, a fairly fascinating guy. And I found his collection of essays, The Order of Battle at Trafalgar, which is, it isn't, despite the title, it isn't mostly historical essays, it's mostly literary essays, especially on the Russian greats that he knew really well and is really good to read on. This is an automatic keeper for my bookshelf of books about books. Once I've looked through it, once I've read through it before. Then this next one, this is by Derek Wilson. I guess I am fated now, in every mail all and in all of my reading, I guess I am fated to be pulled into the orbit of the Elizabethan era. Any of you who watched my Zoom chat with Janet Wortman, the author Janet Wortman has written a trilogy of Tudor era fiction. And she and I have created a kind of pinky promise for NaNoWriMo proper in November, where we will write pendant novels. We will write paired novels, not in any gimmicky sense, not, you have to read hers before you read mine or whatever, but that we will pick two connected characters in Elizabeth's court, and each one where I know about one where I know about the other. I've never tried it before. It's going to be a huge amount of fun. I've had so many emails about that conversation from a lot of people. A lot of you saying, "Well, it seemed like the two of you are having fun, but it also seemed like you rapidly forgot that the rest of us don't know who you're talking about." That is easily possible. I can confess to that. But I found this novel by Derek Wilson called Her Majesty's Captain. I'm hoping I'm not going to have to read every piece of Elizabethan fiction, but this is pretty much on topic. Close enough to on topic. I opened it like this, and I read the dust jacket copy. There's a blurb there's nothing on the book, except the artwork. On the dust jacket on the inside, there's a blurb from Daphne du Maurier, but the description is, this book splendidly recaptures the fine, full-rigged tradition of swashbuckling adventure and exploration in the character of the multi-talented Robert Dudley, Duke of Northumberland, navigator and engineer, admiral and diplomat, shipwright and author, an authentic Elizabethan hero reveling in the prizes and dangers of the era, quick to reap fresh honors for his name and his queen. Okay, then it goes on. Dudley's birth was a result of a secret marriage between Elizabeth's favorite, the Earl of Leicester, and Lady Douglas Sheffield, one of the Queen's maids of honor. For fear of incurring royal displeasure, Robert was brought up as Leicester's base son, a lonely child reared on his father's various isolated manors. But when the great Earl dies, Robert, as his only heir, inherits his father's vast fortune. Brought before Elizabeth's court as one of the wealthiest men in the realm, the young nobleman quickly earns its privileges and experiences its pleasures and perils, the confidence and scrutiny of the Virgin Queen, the enduring friendship of the gallant Lord Essex, the ardor of the lovely Lady Margaret Cavendish, and the bitter enmity of Sir Walter Raleigh. And the dust jacket copy goes on to say, Elizabeth Jenkins, who wrote a great biography of Elizabeth I, says, once he is out to sea, Mr. Wilson's powers come into their own. With his great knowledge of seafaring technicalities and his sympathetic insight, he gives an absorbing account of Dudley's expeditions. Okay, I've never read this. This is Elizabethan fiction I've never read, so I felt obliged, duty-bound to do it. Then this next one is part of the Old Nature Library series. This is from well over a century ago, is that right? Oh no, about a century ago, 1926. This is the Old Nature Library. This is the volume on birds with this heavily embossed cover here. You had many, many volumes. This I would have taken the one on animals as well, but this is on birds, and you've got this lovely painted artwork all throughout of the various birds that are being discussed here. This is see how lovely this is, just beautiful. And you can see that these are all the writings here are taken from the books of Neltje Blanchan, which include Bird Neighbors, which I have. I actually have a copy of that. Birds That Hunt and Are Hunted, How to Attract the Birds, and Birds Every Child Should Know. So this is a child's book of birds, and this I could not pass this up. It has such beautiful artwork in it, very homey. Also, this wonderful border work all throughout. Very homey descriptions of birds and what they're like. Here's the purple martin with more bordering. But in addition to that, all throughout here, the previous owner, probably from a century ago, has taped in bird feathers in the places where with the entries where the birds come from. Amazing. Just amazing. An incredibly personalized old volume. I'm a sucker for these old bird volumes anyway, but for somebody to go through it like that, there are also gentle annotations in pencil throughout, but it's going to be a lot of fun to trace through. I may read this from cover to cover. I usually don't with these things. I usually just flit all around them, no pun intended, but I may poke around, or I may read this thing from front to back. I'm naturally curious to know if sparrows are in here and what is said about them, since I have a rather unruly group of a-hole sparrows myself that I have observed enormously. The sparrows that are out in my front hedges, I know them of old. I have been watching them through generations for over 15 years. To the point where when I'm walking around, like I was walking in downtown Boston today, and a sparrow hops across my path, my first reaction is not, ooh, a sparrow. It's, hey, I don't recognize you. because I know my sparrows so well. And I know they have almost no redeeming qualities. Then this next one, I mentioned that the Brattle recently, in fact, when I noticed it when David and I went there just a couple of weeks ago, the Brattle recently got a gigantic amount of those big, old omnibus volumes. 5 novels by so-and-so, 7 novels by so-and-so. And they got a wide variety of them. A lot of them were by Avenel Press, but a lot of them weren't. There are a lot of other anthologies there, and some of them are still there. There are 2 volumes of Mickey Spillane. I had them in my hand. I decided, do I want Mickey Spillane enough to have 2 big, heavy hardcovers? No, I don't. There was 2 volumes of Louis L'Amour, but I believe that Avenel did 5 volumes and a set, and I would want the whole set. I wouldn't want just 2. And plus, I'm kind of fond of Louis L'Amour mass market paperbacks. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe the hardcovers would be more convenient. But the whole time that I was looking at that, there was also there's an Andrew Greeley one. There's a Joseph Wambaugh one. There was a Frank Slaughter one. Today, also, I saw a John Steinbeck one. A big, fat Avenel hardcover of collected works of John Steinbeck. And I almost considered it. But it looks to me like it's the same basic contents as that gorgeous Penguin Classic Deluxe edition of the shorter works of Steinbeck. It looks to me like there's almost complete overlap there. And I don't like Steinbeck enough anyway to have a big volume like that. But the whole time that I've been looking at it, I've been wishing for things. Wishing that I could find, Avenel did a couple of Sherlock Holmes volumes. They did, I think, 3 Miss Marple volumes. A few other things too. Baby, stop licking. But the whole time I was thinking of one anthology volume, not an Avenel volume, but an anthology volume that I had years ago. I may have hauled it on this channel, but I had it years ago. I loved it, and I got rid of it, and I don't know why. I just don't know why. And I found it today. Now, I will not be getting rid of this. I found an anthology, this is Reader's Digest, of the great novels of Mary Roberts Rinehart. And that, of course, is the spiral staircase on the cover there, and there is our author on the back. An incredibly best-selling author. I'm so disappointed that she is not better remembered now. I love her work. And I also love her autobiographical volume, which was a real find when I found it at the Brattle. I've gone back to that thing a number of times. This is a volume that I really wanted. I kicked myself when I would look at old photos of stacks of books. I saw this and just kicked myself that I don't have it anymore. Well, now I do. And I am scraping the bottom of the anthology volumes. Probably there won't be that many more of them. Unless there's, maybe, for all I know, there's another 2 boxes of them that just got mixed up in the basement and will come up in their due time. In their due time. It was fun to visit at the Brattle today. I heard an anecdote today that I had not heard. Joyce, the wife of the owner, told me that she was talking with someone who saw the Brattle as it was filmed in the movie The Holdovers. There's a scene where the characters go to the Brattle sale lot. A lot of you have told me that you're kind of expecting me to be in that scene. Joyce told me today that she had a question from a customer asking them, well, did they bring those books to the set? Was that the prop department that put those in there? Or were those yours? There's another. What was my point about that? I don't know. It was fun to visit the Brattle. That's what I was trying to say. But this next one, this is part of a project. I don't know what it's going to be. It's not off the ground yet. I'm still thinking about it. But the author here is Alan Eckert, and I found another hardcover of his. What was the series even called? I think this thing is probably too early to tell me. Well, yeah, 1967. This is the first edition. I don't remember what ultimately ended up being the name of this series. Something, I want to say The Winning of the West, but it wasn't that. He did a series of books, and this is The Frontiersman. Again, no editorial folderol, just lovely cover art on the front and back. Rare to find these things at the Brattle. I hardly ever see them at the Brattle, and the hardcovers of this guy with dust jackets. The last time I checked, they were expensive online. Not that I would buy one online anyway, because it'd be falling apart, and the seller would just lie about that. But I recently read this Wilderness Empire by the same author. The same kind of just lovely expanse of cover art, and that put me in the mood to read more. I guess I'm being really picky in a way that you can only be if you have access to a place like the Brattle Bookshop. I kind of want all of my whatever reread I do of this author to be in these hardcovers with these dust jackets, which is, considering how rare they are, I doubt I'm going to find any others. There are like 10 more. But these, the more I read this author, and the more I read about this author, and the more I read stuff this author wrote that isn't his mainstream books, autobiographical stuff, letters and whatnot, the more intrigued I am by him as a writer, as a figure in literary history. You see, this is called a narrative, not a novel. And he was very, very forthright about that. If I remember correctly, this is the book that actually starts that way. Yeah, this book is fact, not fiction. But it's got dialogue all throughout. And really colorful character descriptions. Same thing with this one. This one. It's the same way. I don't know if he starts this off with that same declaration. Yeah, Wilderness Empire is fact, not fiction. Every incident herein described actually occurred. Every day is historically accurate. Every character, regardless of how major or minor, actually lived the role in which he's portrayed. And this author took a lot of pride in that. All of his works were enormously researched. He won a major children's award. Was it the Caldecott Award? I always get the Caldecott and the Newbery mixed up. But he won a major children's award. He also won an Emmy from Mutual of Omaha. I believe he wrote Mutual of Omaha. But he poured himself into this long series of narratives. I love this author's work. Now, that's not enough to provoke me to a serious sit-down, a serious, I don't even know what you would call it. It's a systematic reread, of course, because I'd be rereading everything this author wrote, but also a reconsideration. These writer figures, these guys mostly from the mid-20th century, they are forgotten. No one thinks about them, no one talks about them, they're not seriously studied in any way. And of all of them, I think Eckhart deserves that study more than any of them, because he had a plan in mind. He had an idea of what he was doing. It wasn't just, I'm going to sit at my desk for 5 hours every day. I'm going to churn out a really rumbustious historical narrative that people are going to love. He had more to do than that. He insisted that his research meant something, that he wasn't writing just straight up historical potboilers. The same line is the same kind of wavy in his explicit nonfiction, Dark and Bloody River, about the Ohio River, and also A Sorrow in Our Hearts, his great biography of Tecumseh. Those two have spoken dialogue, lots of novelistic touches, what we would call novelistic touches. Of course, I'm less doctrinaire about those kinds of dividing lines than maybe a lot of readers would be, because I love all sorts of authors who blur those lines, who wrote centuries or millennia before Alan Eckhart. But I'm curious about Alan Eckhart. There's never been a biography of him. As far as I know, there never will be one. I'm pretty sure that no one has ever done a letter collection, which would be incredible because he knew everyone, corresponded with everyone. I'm sure that his literary remains are probably in 10 boxes somewhere in some university campus, unconsulted by anybody. And does anyone own a framed original of any of this artwork? I don't know. I doubt it. It seems to me that he's completely fallen off the radar. And the more I read him and the more I find him, the less just I think that is. This is a really interesting figure, a figure who had a genuine agenda in mind that I not only am interested in, but also far more rare for me, almost unheard of, that I respect. I think I respect this guy deadly for a critic, but I wouldn't be going at him as a critic in this project, whatever it is, which I'm now 2 steps in. That's all. I've got a long way to go. The next time I find one of these things, I'll grab it. It's totally random chance. I've got a lot that I can read in the meantime. Then this next one, It's a wonderful, absolutely adorable thing. It's a pure example of it's a $6.95 hardcover, 1971. This is a pure example of the Brattle will provide. I had a copy of this. I'm pretty sure I probably hauled it on this channel 5-6 years ago or whatever. I had a copy of this thing and it fell apart, but I love it. It's an old, small circulation nonfiction hardcover from 1971. So in your used bookstore, probably you would never see it once, and you would certainly never see it twice. But I'm so spoiled by the Brattle that when my copy fell apart, I thought, well, the Brattle will provide. The shop will turn up another copy. And it did. It did. It turned up. This is Arlene Thomas. This is Bird Ambulance. Her heavily photographed, look at that owl. That's a real owl. It's heavily photographed, full of photographs of her adventures rehabilitating birds of all kinds. Not just, let's see if I can find you another photograph here. Not just the owl on the cover, but also robins and pheasants and a falcon. There's a falcon. This is just a light collection of anecdotes of that life, and it's wonderful. Just wonderful. And now I have another copy because the Brattle will provide. The Brattle will, if you go often enough, you will see everything. And then this next one was a gift. I wasn't expecting that. This was behind the counter up at the front of the store. It was a gift from the shop owner to me. I don't know how, considering how many people he has talking to him all the time, I don't know how he remembers one particular thing that might appeal to one particular customer. I don't know how he does it, but he's absolutely right. He found me this great National Geographic volume, probably the best of the ones they did, Men, Ships, and the Sea, with all of these. You've got archival photos and illustrations and sidebars, but you also have lots of original National Geographic artwork. This is all about mankind's nautical history. And this copy is in much better shape than the one that I have. Maybe Ken spotted that on the shelf and made a mental note of it. I never know how that works. One of his employees, one of his managers, Zach, is also the same way. He will forget what he had for lunch yesterday, but he will remember that so-and-so is looking for such and such a book 10 years later when it crops up in a buy. This was wonderful. It was just absolutely not expected at all, but wonderful and very much needed. And there you go. That was my second consecutive Brattle visit in 24 hours. We have Men, Ships, and the Sea. We have Bird Ambulance replacing a destroyed copy. Fantastic. And the Brattle's the only place I know where I could just confidently expect to find another copy of this thing. The Frontiersman. To continue my assessment of Alan Eckert, who was he? What was he trying to do? I've never read a book of his that I didn't love. I don't ultimately care whether or not he's remembered. I want to know who knew him. I want to know the literary web work extending out from him. Did he know Louis L'Amour? Weren't they friends? Did he know Kenneth Roberts? Weren't they friends? I want to know that and what it means. How much correspondence was there that's not collected anywhere, that's yellowing somewhere? I think it'd be fascinating. Then Mary Roberts Reinhardt, the best works of Mary Roberts Reinhardt. How wonderful to find this volume. Never getting rid of it again. Then the Nature Library, the Bird volume. Her Majesty's Captain. We'll see what that is. The Order of Battle at Trafalgar by John Bailey. How wonderful to have this. It's a nice, clean hardcover. Gollum Race to the 100th Power by Alfred Bester. No idea if this means that other Bester novels in hardcover. It'd be great to find The Deceivers in hardcover. Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, the one with the whales. Vonda McIntyre hardcover. I might as well have it. The Best of C.L. Moore. I'm going to try to resist getting all these best ofs in hardcover. I kind of want them in mass market paperback. And finally, Flashing Swords #1. Which is this great cover here. It's a terrific volume. Here, let me tell you what's in it. Let's see here. The Sadness of the Executioner by Fritz Leiber. Morin by Jack Vance. The Merman's Children by Poul Anderson. And The Higher Heresies of Ulamar by Lynn Carter. So this is a giveaway. Feel free if you're interested and you meet the 3 criteria. You must live in the lower 48. You must be able to tell me where you live, little Timmy. Where do you live? Without leaving out something big and important. And without me giving you the 3rd degree to make sure you have it all right. And you must want the book. Not, remember that? I might take it. No, you're not cool. If you're watching a book channel, you're not cool. None of us are cool. So that was my trip to the Brattle. It was wonderful. It was darkened just a little by my return. It's just a quick subway ride from my front door to the Brattle. But on my return, of course, my bag, the shoulder bag that I keep meaning to do Bag Tuesday, that shoulder bag is just a miracle. It just is unbeatable. It's just unbeatable. And it was stuffed full of books, but it can handle any degree of stuffing. And I sat down on Subway and I was minding my own business. You want to mind your own business. I get on the subway car. I check to see how many people are there. I check to see whether or not anyone is dead. And I also check to see if anyone is armed. I don't want to be on a car with someone who's armed, even if they seem responsible. I don't want that. So I check first for those things. If those things are okay, I take my seat and mind my own business. In this case, taking out one book at a time and looking at it to refresh my memory of what I hoovered up at the Brattle. I was looking at these books when there was a woman across the car from me, and I heard her say, I got books, huh? And that's not an innocent invitation to conversation. There is no such thing as an innocent invitation to conversation when you're on a subway. The only time that an invitation to conversation will ever be innocent when you're on a subway is if it's coming from me. So I did with her what I would do in any such circumstance, which is to completely ignore her. Completely. So, in other words, no look up and then look down again, no smile, no acknowledgement that anyone spoke at all. Just stick with your business. You will always regret it if you don't. So I just did that, and then 2 stops later, it was her stop, and she moved to the door right next to where I was sitting. And as she was on her way out, she said, "You should read the Bible, not those books." And then she left. And I patted myself on the back at first. I thought you made the right decision not to make eye contact and talk with her because she was crazy. But it's been bothering me ever since because of the sheer white hot hatred in her voice when she said that. She had no idea what books I had in my bag. For all she knew, I had 2 Bibles in there. She had no idea, and she's never read anything, including the Bible, obviously. It wasn't that. It was the sheer hatred in her voice. Her comment was not, "You should read the Bible." Her comment, those were the words that she spoke. But what she meant was, you should only read the Bible, and you should be forced to do it. Not any other book, and not skip it either. You should be made to do it. She was a lunatic, of course, so I'm trying not to read too much into it. But in that one parting comment, I heard the threat, one of the largest threats facing American democracy, which is Seven Mountains Dominionism, the Dominionist fundamentalist church movement, which is incredibly strong and has almost entirely captured one of the 2 major political parties in this country. They don't necessarily need converts. They don't need to like the politicians. They just need to use them. The 2 politicians to them are vessels. They are tools to use to get their policies enacted, which is a theocratic remaking of America, in which you don't get to read any book but the Bible, and you don't get to say no. I heard that in her voice. She should read the Bible. But it was a tiny little thing. It didn't ruin my day. Not when I've got all these books. So that was my trip to the Brattle. I am not going to the Brattle tomorrow. I am not. The weather forecasts are saying gathering clouds and then rain for 3 or 4 days this week. I don't believe that anything like that is going to happen. I think something serious broke in me with the eclipse. Because if the weather people, if the meteorology just writ large, can lie about an eclipse, then they can certainly lie about a rainstorm. I think I'm just not going to care about it anymore. I don't believe anything that anyone's telling me. I guess I could look at data, raw barometric data. That might tell me something. about what may or may not happen at the end part of this week. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we had back-to-back tornadoes. I'm not going back to the Brattle for a while. There. But I had a fun visit. It was a wonderful, wonderful visit. Just friendly and fun, anecdotal, full of books. I firmly believe that any of you would do the same. so I'm going to wrap this up for now. Let me know about the giveaway if you want Flashing Swords #1, and I'll be back. Thank you.